Chapter 43. Battle was disaster. 4 days after the Battle of Ogdensburgh, Joseph Roseel wrote to financier David Parish, who was in Philadelphia, about the disaster which befell this place last Monday. His blunt words were an indictment of all, the Americans, the British, the Canadians, the citizens, war in general, and the Battle of Ogdensburgh in particular. He said, "In the disaster which befell this place last Monday, none of our friends have suffered in their persons, but many lost their property. Early in the morning, when our officers were making their toilet, and the men in quest of their rations were scattered over the place, they were seen marching over in solid columns, swift and orderly. To the credit of ours, be it said, it was not until the enemy landed at Ogdensburg that a cannon was fired. The matches were not ready, and the men not at their posts. 500 British effected their landing behind my house, whilst a party of 200 men were making a sham attack upon Fort Van Rensselaer, which kept Captain Forsyth at bay. He was summoned to surrender, but proposed to fight. From the barracks, the militia, few in number, too wise to make resistance, drew in files into the village by Washington Street, and fired as they yielded ground to the British, who rapidly and undaunted rushed forward to the charge, partly by the latter street and partly by Lisbon Street. The enemy was soon master of all, and of course took all the public property, burned the barracks, the old garrison, the vessels in the harbor, destroyed Fort Van Rensselaer, and burned partly the bridge across the Oswegatchie River. In a contest where the number of one party was about treble that of the other, where resistance on one side was continually yielding, and on the other pursuit in attacking was readily relinquished, not many lives, of course, could be lost, and but few made prisoners. Among the number of the latter is Lieutenant Baird of the U.S. Rifle Corps, who was wounded in his foot. The enemy was composed of one half regulars and the other half of militia. I observed the latter, several of whom before the war I had been in habits of friendly intercourse. About the close of the fight, when our militia were put to flight up the state road and Forsyth was retreating by the Black Lake road, some Indians and Jacobins came over from Canada and ransacked every house in this place where the inhabitants had fled. Mr. Lewis, Mr. Ross, Mr. Arnold, Mr. Plum, Mr. Hemingway, Mr. Wilson, Mr. Dunning, and myself were the only ones who stayed to protect their property. Inured, as it were, by former scenes of soldier-like insolence and rapacity experienced on similar occasions in my native country, Belgium, I was but little surprised at the conduct of the invaders toward the peaceable inhabitants. At one time they were carrying off some of my property and hurrying my person off for Canada, when a British officer who knew me, happening to pass by my house and perceiving my embarrassment, rushed in, bid the ruffians desist, and disperse them. But I had like to have been completely undone. The sleigh by means of which Mrs. R., her sister, and the domestics effected their escape the moment the British landed behind my house, had but just passed clear of the mouth of a cannon loaded with canister shot, posted in the center of Euphemia, State, and Ford Streets, where it was fired off at the enemy a few seconds later, and what retarded their flight was our being destitute of a ready conveyance. At 2 in the afternoon, the British evacuated the place, and after giving Mr. Plum charge of my house, I put the trunk of land office papers on his sled, and with his horse, the only beast of burden, your mare excepted, the British had not taken away, set out in search of my friends, whom, thank heaven, I found all safe at Kellogg's, where I also met with Captain Forsyth and the greater part of his corps. They had short from Kelsey Thurber's through the wilderness. Captain Forsyth's hat and coat were pierced with bullets. Several of the houses here are so shattered by the affair of last Monday as to be next to uninhabitable. Much of the window glass of your home is broken. In the land office we cannot live. The very sashes have been thrown in by the concussion of the air during the cannonade. The lower end of your fence is pierced with grape shot. the British in Washington Street fighting from behind it. My house is unhurt. Squire McCollum's and Mr. Hasbrook's are most damaged. When one views the destruction committed inside the houses, it is obvious it was done wantonly. Charges and countercharges were to be hurled for more than 35 years after the last gun was fired.